Okay, so in the last lecture we discussed the existence of the Fourier series, and we saw that whether we asked that question, that whether it's always possible to determine the Fourier series coefficients or not. And we saw that in most of the cases that we find in engineering applications, this is indeed true. We can find the Fourier series coefficients of the most of the signals which we normally encounter in real life. But there are some situations where the signals are not, possible to have these three properties which we discussed last time. So examples I had already given you regarding each of the three. So today what we will discuss is, like, another phenomena which we were, which I gave you a slight hint of when we were doing Fourier series derivation. And the phenomena is basically what we call is as Gibbs phenomena. So in this, what we want to see is, like, what exactly is this Gibbs phenomena, and like what are its consequences on the Fourier series. So in our case, let us, explore this issue of convergence in the Fourier series at the discontinuities. So if you consider the periodic waveform which we were discussing since last lecture, if this is our periodic signal, which is like this. So if this is a periodic signal which is, extending from left to right. So if you do the uh, Fourier series coefficient for this particular type of signal, the trigonometric Fourier series, if you look in particular, which I think we have already done it also, then what you will find is, like, the AK coefficients will be 0 here, and the BKs which we have in this particular situation is basically 4 over pi k, 4 over pi k when k is odd, and 0 when it's even. So basically, you have, these coefficients AK and BK, which which are depending upon the particular signal that we are considering, and right now AK is 0 and BK is 4 over pi k. So if you want to approximate your signal using the mth approximation which we were already discussing since last time, then we can express this as, you already know this. You will run these k's from 1 to m, and then you have 4 over pi k, and then you have sine pi t, and note here k will be odd, so that indicates that there is no even terms of k. So this is basically a general expression that you will get when you do the reconstruction of this signal, which is this, using the Fourier series coefficients. And note that right now what we are doing is we are actually not putting this particular thing as infinity here. We are putting it as m. So as I told you last time also, so if you want to have a perfect reconstruction, then m is equal to infinity. But if we, change these values of m here, and if we do not keep it as infinite, or so infinite terms are not there, then what will happen is this is not equal exactly, but this will be approximate. It cannot be equal. So this is important. So if your m is infinite, then this approximation can be equal, otherwise it's not. So if you see, and also the corresponding error, if you want to observe for each of these cases, then you will have, the corresponding error will be x tilde t minus x tilde m t. So based on, like, how many terms you are using, you are actually calculating the approximated signal as well as its approximated error it is creating from the original signal x tilde t. So these are the two things that we will see in the slides. So if you see here, we have, I have plotted these different scenarios where, you have different m's. For example, if you see here closely, this is basically the reconstructed signal at, using only one term, and this is also the corresponding error that is incurred when we are using only one term. And you can see also, like when you are using only one term means you are using only a single sinusoidal component to approximate this signal, which is this one. So you can see how poorly it is approximating the original signal using one sine signal. And obviously if this is it's a poor approximation, so is the error which is given on the right side. Now if we use three terms here instead of using one term, now if you use three terms, then in this situation what will happen is uh, you know this approximation which is coming out here will be close to the signal that we are actually looking for, but it is also not exactly the same, and this is actually the corresponding error that is incurred when you use three of these terms. And similarly, if you see here, if you use nine terms, then you can see you are some way or the other trying to get closer to the original signal, which is the square signal, but still you have some ripples here. If you observe here, you have some ripples. If you observe this, these are called as the ripples, which you can see here. Even in here also you will see there are some ripples. And if you continue to, and correspondingly you can observe the error also here for the ninth signal, then you can see again this error is somewhat reduced compared to the error which you had when you were using only three signals. But now when we increase to 25, if we use 25 terms, then you can see that ripples are still there. You can see these ripples are still there, but what happens is you are getting closer to the original signal. But after this, like for example, after using m is equal to 25, if you go to 35, or if you go to let us say 100 or 150, you will see there is a very slight difference in the overall structure of this yellow one. There is a slight difference. Is you will still get these ripples even if you use 100 or 150 or 250, whatever, and same will be here also. So these ripples are actually inherent in this Fourier series if you truncate them and if you do not sum it up to infinite. And this also shows that if you use your m to be something, some value other than infinite, then what you are getting as x tilde t approximation is not is an approximation, and it's not equal to the original signal. And also see the corresponding error here. See the phenomena, the error that you are incurring when you are using m is equal to 25, the error that you are getting here is very 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 small compared to the error that you are getting here. But the other important point that has to be noted here is that these spikes that you are getting here are independent of m is equal to any value. Like if you use m is equal to 3, 5, 4, whatever, these spikes are always having the amplitude in between plus a and minus a, and they are not reducing, whereas the other part of the error is reducing, but this error is still remaining the same, this one. And I told you that this is mainly because of this inability of the Fourier series to approximate the discontinuity, because you are actually approximating any function which is a continuous function using a continuous basis function, but at the discontinuity actually you cannot approximate that discontinuity using the Fourier series. That's why this type of discontinuity is occurring in the error also. And another important thing that you will observe here is in each of these curves, whether it's the first curve, second curve, third curve, fourth curve, depending upon whatever m you are using, what you will observe is that there will be a overshoot and undershoot of the signal. So if you see here, it's overshooting the signal here. So actually the signal is this, but it is overshooting this and it is undershooting at this point. So you can observe that there will be always a overshoot and undershoot of the approximated signal at the discontinuity location. So these are the important observations that you can see over here. So I will give you few more insights onto this. So let us say if I take only the 25th term, that is this particular example, if I take only this particular example, then what will happen is I am just taking the discontinuous point, like I am just observing the discontinuous window. So what I can see is there is a overshoot as well as there is an undershoot of the signal at the discontinued location, and this on the right side is the error which I am plotting in the zoomed version of this particular this particular region. So the important point that has to be noted here is that the amount of overshoot or undershoot, that is this amount of overshoot from zero, like at this zero line, let us say this is a zero line. So the amount of overshoot, and at this particular location the undershoot here, so this amount, and same for the overshoot, this amount. So the amount of overshoot and undershoot is basically 9% of the height of the discontinuity. So whatever is your height here of the discontinuity, this is your height, right? So if you take 9% of that, that will be actually the peak, this peak, this, and same will this. So these peaks will be actually 9% of the total height of this discontinuity. So this this type of situation where you have these rippling behavior at the discontinuity and is basically called as Gibbs phenomena, and the specific reason for this Gibbs phenomena is the inability of the sinusoidal basis functions that are continuous at every point to approximate the discontinuity in the signal. So since we are using a continuous sinusoidal basis functions to approximate a discontinuous signal, it is unable to do so. That's why we have this situation of Gibbs phenomena. And if you observe, what I have done is I have taken the zoomed version of this location. So this zoomed version is this. So here you can observe that this height here and this height here from the 0th position actually is 0.18, and similarly this is also 0.18, and this is basically 9% of the total height of the discontinuity, which is 2. So if you take 9% of 2, it's 0.18. So that's what I was telling, that the amplitude here is basically 9%, and it never reduces. It will always be the same whether you use m is equal to 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, 100, 150, whatever. So these undershoots and overshoots amplitude will always be same. So this finishes off with the concept of Gibbs phenomena, which we encounter in Fourier series, as well as the existence of the Fourier series. So now once this is finished, I will move to the properties of the continuous time Fourier series, like what properties continuous time Fourier series have. So the first property of the continuous time Fourier series is the linearity property. So in linearity property, what it says is let x tilde t and y tilde t be the periodic signals, with period t. So if x tilde t and y tilde t are the periodic signals with period t, so what happens is if you take the Fourier series coefficient of the x tilde t, its value let us say is ck, and if you take the Fourier series coefficients of yt, its coefficients comes out to be, let us say, dk, the exponential Fourier series coefficients what I am looking at here. So right now what I am doing is I am taking the exponential Fourier series coefficients. So now what happens is if you take a signal z tilde t, a periodic signal z tilde t, which is a combination of x tilde t and y tilde t, which and are weighted by alpha and beta, then if you take the Fourier series coefficients of z tilde t, which are, let us say, zk, then that zk will be actually again a linear combinations of the Fourier series coefficients ck plus beta times dk. So this actually shows the linearity property of the Fourier series coefficients. So if you want to prove this, and the proof is very simple. So what you can do is you can use zk as 1 by t integration running from 0 to t, then you take z tilde t e to the power minus j k omega naught t dt. So this is basically what I am doing. I am actually calculating the coefficients of z tilde t, which is the periodic function, which is a linear combination of xt and yt. So what we can do now is we can actually substitute the values of zt here, which is x tilde t plus beta times y tilde t. And again you can see, so once you have this, so what you can do is you can divide the integrals into two parts. So the first part is nothing but alpha 1 by t x tilde t minus j k omega naught t dt, and second part will be again 0 to t y tilde t minus j k omega naught t dt. So once you have these two, you know that this particular thing you already know is the Fourier series coefficient, exponential Fourier series coefficients for x tilde t, and that is equal to alpha ck we have assumed, and the other one you already know that this is basically the Fourier series coefficients for y tilde t, and that is dk we have already assumed. So we know now that the Fourier series coefficients of the modified signal, which is z tilde t, which is a linear combination of xt and yt, the corresponding Fourier series also will be uniformly weighted using alpha and beta. So this proves the linearity property of the Fourier series coefficients. Now the second property of the Fourier series coefficient is basically a time shifting operation. So in time shifting operation, if xt basically if xt is having a Fourier series coefficient ck, let us say, so if yt is there, which is a modified signal, and what you are doing is you are actually shifting it by a time of t naught, then what happens is you will observe that the corresponding Fourier series coefficients will get modified by this one. So now you can see here that if you time shift by an amount of t naught, the corresponding Fourier series coefficients will be modulated, you can say, or multiplied by minus j omega naught k t naught. Again, it's very easy to prove this. So what you can do is, like, you can assume that we have already know that the corresponding coefficients of yt, we are always telling it as to be dk. So what we can do is we can calculate dk as 1 over t integration 0 to t yt e to the power minus j k omega naught t dt. And then what you can do, you can substitute this value here, which is t minus t naught e to the power minus j k omega naught t dt. So once you do this, then what you can do is you can use a variable substitution as tau, which is t minus t naught. So if you do this variable substitution, you can easily get the answer as, that your dk is basically ck e to the power minus j omega naught k t naught. This is just very simple substitution. Once you do this, the exponential term, which contains a constant t naught, will come out, and the other part will be always the coefficient ck. So the important point that to be noted here is that if you take the absolute value of the Fourier series coefficient dk to plot the line spectrum, then the corresponding that modified signal yt will have the same spectrum as that of the ck. So that means, the Fourier series coefficients will always remain the same, even if you shift the signal by an amount of t naught. Number third property is frequency shifting. So in frequency shifting, what happens is if you have a xt and you have its corresponding coefficients ck, then yt, if you multiply this ck, because these are actually the frequency coefficients. So if you multiply uh, uh, by exponential here, let us say if you multiply the signal xt by e to the power j m omega naught t xt, if you multiply it with this exponential here on the on in the time domain, then what will happen is, the corresponding this thing, uh, the corresponding yt will have the Fourier coefficients dk. So what will happen is the corresponding signal here will have the shifting of the Fourier series coefficients by an amount of m. So what you will observe is, like, if you have a xt with the Fourier series coefficient ck, and if you multiply the time domain signal by this exponential factor, then the corresponding frequency shift will happen, and the frequency shift will be, by an amount of m, by which you are actually multiplying it with this exponential. So this is, that's why it's called as frequency shifting. So the thing is, proof is also very simple here. So if you have the Fourier series coefficients for yt as dk, then what you can do is you can again write it as, 0 to t yt e to the power minus j omega naught t dt, and then you can write your actual yt. What yt is, your yt is ej m omega naught t xt minus j k omega naught t dt. So once you have this, then what you can do is you can actually write it as 1 over t integration 0 to t xt e to the power minus j omega naught t, and then you can take k minus m like this, and this will be your final expression. And now you know that this particular thing is again the coefficient ck evaluated at k, c coefficient c evaluated at k minus m, because this k minus m is reflected here. So the frequency shift will happen in this case. So normally what we also say in the other way is, like, if you do a frequency shifting in the, if in the frequency domain, let us say if you shift the frequencies in the in the frequency domain by an amount of m, then the corresponding signal in the time domain xt will actually be multiplied by this factor j m omega t. You can say this way around also. So whatever coefficients that you have in the original coefficients xt, and if you shift these coefficients by an amount of m, that corresponds to multiplication by an factor of ej m omega t onto xt. The another property that we have is time reversal. So in time reversal, what we have is, in time reversal, what this property says is that if you have xt whose corresponding coefficients are ck, then if you take x of minus t of this particular signal, then the corresponding coefficients of this particular signal will actually change by c of minus k. So this c of minus k, again it's very easy to do it. That is, you can use dk as 1 over t integration 0 to t. Then you have, yt e to the power minus j omega naught kt dt, and then you can write 1 by t integration 0 to t. Then you have x of minus t e to the power minus j k omega naught t dt. And now you can do a substitution which is tau equal to minus t here. So obviously if tau is minus t, then you can do the variable substitution, and after doing the variable substitution on this, you can easily get your dk as c of minus k. So this is basically what it is saying is, if you do a time reversal on the time domain, the corresponding time reversal on the frequency domain will happen, and it will become c minus k. And the another important property that we have is time scaling. So in time scaling, what happens is, if your xt has a coefficient ck, let us say, then if you take yt as, a scaled version of xt which is at, then the corresponding coefficients yt that we are denoting by dk, that value will always be equal to ck. So what it says is, even if you do a time scaling on the time domain of the signal x, the corresponding coefficient that you will get of the time scaling of the signal, which is Ck, will always be the same and they will not change. So this is time scaling operation. Then we have a periodic convolution operation. So in periodic convolution operation, what happens is, if you have xt which has the coefficients ck, and then you have yt which has the coefficients dk, then what happens is, if you take zt and if you do a convolution in the time domain, then what we have observed is that if you convolve two sequences in the time domain, that is equivalent to, like, the coefficient that you will obtain in the frequency domain, that is, for zt you are saying zk, then that is, this operation is equivalent to multiplication of the coefficients in the frequency domain. So ck is the frequency coefficients for xt, and yt's frequency coefficients are dk. So the operation that you normally perform in time domain is very complex. If you have solved these exercises on the convolution in time domain, you already know that it's very difficult to do it in time domain, as you have to flip the signal, then shift it and see for each range that at what range these signals are. So that is a difficult thing to do. So what happens is, the another alternate way of doing the same thing is, you transform it into frequency domain, and once you transform into frequency domain, then you can actually multiply these coefficients that you will get for xt and yt simply. So there is no convolution operation involved. You just multiply these two coefficients to get zk, and then once you have this, then you can go for the synthesis equation to get your zt back. So whatever zt that you will get by applying the synthesis equation, then what you will get is, you will get the z tilde t back, which is actually the convolution of xt and yt. So this shows that it's very easy to perform convolution in time domain by transforming it into frequency domain, do the operation and come back in the time domain. So if you want to prove this expression, then it's very easy. Like, if you have a signal zt, which is basically given by 0 to t, then what we have here is, you can write it as, uh, just a second. Yeah, so this will not be zt here, so it's basically zk here. So what that will be is, it will be zt e to the power minus jk omega naught t dt. So no, you know this. And another important thing that you know is that your zt here, though it is written in convolution, but the exact expression will be like, you will be taking one time period of that. So it will be x tau y t minus tau data. So this is basically the expression for your convolution operation. So here what we are doing is, we are actually substituting this expression which we are having here for the convolution operation in this particular thing. And once you do that, then you can easily find out that these two coefficients, when will be actually multiplication of each other. So here you have 1 over t, then you have 0 to t, then you take 1 over t, then you have 0 to t, x of tau, y of t minus tau, d tau, then you have ej a omega naught t dt. So this is what you are obtaining by substituting the value of zt here. And then once you have this, you can uh, change the coefficients, like you can change the interchange the integrals. So what you will have here is, like, you can do it like this. You can put the tau term outside, and then you can write like this. Then you have this, so you can write it like this also. So it's just the interchange of the symbols, like properly adjusting integrals to the corresponding coefficient that you are evaluating. and then you already know that this particular expression here is basically, what we are trying to do is we are actually doing a time shifting operation on the t minus tau thing. So you are trying to calculate the signal which is actually time shifted by tau. So if you see our previous derivation on the time shifting operation, then this whole expression which is in the brackets here will actually turns out to be dk minus jk omega naught tau. So this is what you will get when you evaluate this integral, and it's very easy. It's a time shifting operation which we have already derived earlier. So this is basically the corresponding shift in the dk by a factor of minus jk omega naught tau. So once you have this, you can you know you can uh, you can take dk outside, and you can take the integral here, and then you have x tau minus jk omega naught tau d tau, and this one you already know is the evaluation for the exponential Fourier series coefficients for x tau. So that will be equal to ck. So by doing this type of adjustments of the integrals, and doing this mathematical calculation, what you have observed is that your zk coefficient that you get for the modified signal, which is actually the convolution of the xt and the yt in time domain, the corresponding signals that you will see here will be multiplication of the dk and ck coefficients in the frequency domain. Similarly, there is another property which we have is which we call as multiplication property. And in this multiplication property, what we have is, if you have a signal xt, if you have its corresponding coefficients as ck, and then you have yt whose corresponding coefficients are dk, then the modified signal zt, that if you multiply these two, so if you multiply instead of convolving, then what will happen is the corresponding coefficients zk that you obtain for zt will actually be equal to m ck dk minus l. So the important thing that is to be noted here is, in this particular thing, if you do a convolution of the signals, if you do the multiplication of the time signals, like in time domain, if you are doing a multiplication, that is equivalent to convolution in the frequency domain. So you can see this is the discrete convolution, the discrete time convolution, because the coefficients of ck and dk are the discrete coefficients like this, which we have already plotted out earlier. So these coefficients are all discrete, and you can see that this particular expression that you have here is actually a discrete time convolution. So what it says is, if you multiply the two time signals in time domain, the corresponding coefficients that you will obtain in the frequency domain are actually the convolution of the two discrete time sequences, which is ck and dk. In the other thing, if you in the earlier property, if you convolve in time sequences, then it means you are frequency multiplying these coefficients. So that is the important takeaway from these two properties, which is multiplication as well as the convolution. Another property that you have is differentiation property. So in differentiation property, what happens is, if you have xt which has the coefficient ck, and if you differentiate this particular signal by an amount of dt, that is d by dt of xt, then what you will see is the corresponding modified coefficients yt that you will get, that is dk of yt. The corresponding coefficients of yt which are dk will be equal to j k omega naught ck. So what you observe is that the coefficients ck will be actually multiplied by jk omega naught, and it becomes the modified coefficients of the new signal yt, which is differentiation of the signal xt. So again, you can prove this easily, because you have this xt given as k running from minus infinity to infinity ck jk omega naught t, and you already know this expression. This is just exponential Fourier series representation of the signal xt, and you know that yt is basically nothing but you are taking the derivative of this signal. So once you take the derivative of the signal, it's very easy. It will be like ck uh, take the derivative of this, so it will be jk omega naught, then you have e to the power jk omega naught t. So once you have this, you can write this particular part as the modified signal, which is dk. So you can see, if you replace it by dk, then the modified signal will have will be like yt, whose corresponding coefficients dk will be this, and these coefficients are coming by taking the derivative of the signal as d by dt. So this is basically the differentiation property of the Fourier series. And the last property that we have in this is integration property. In the integration property, what we have is, like, if the signal is having a series Fourier series coefficient ck, then the corresponding yt, which we are integrating like this. If you are integrating the signal, the corresponding Fourier series coefficients that you get for dk are nothing but 1 over jk omega naught ck. So this is basically what happens is, you are actually getting the coefficients dk as, you multiply the original coefficient ck by 1 over jk omega naught. So that will give you the corresponding modified signal yt's dk coefficient. So again, you can do it easily, that if you have xt as k running from minus infinity to infinity, then you have ck jk omega naught t, then yt is basically d by sorry, it's integration here. So yt will be nothing but, you are taking an integration and then you are summing it up here. So once you have this, you can interchange the integral with the summation, then you have this one. So once you have this, you can do the see, this is not infinite, so here it is t. So once you have this, you can easily evaluate this integral, and this will be nothing but ck, then you have ejk omega naught t dt divided by j omega naught k. So once you have this, you can say that this is your modified coefficients, and these modified coefficients, you are representing it by dk, and dk are the corresponding coefficients of yt, which is basically nothing but integration of xt ranging from minus infinity to t. So this is basically the integration properties of the Fourier series. So this is integration property. So with this, we have finished off with the topic of Fourier series, and in the next class, what we will discuss is, we will discuss Fourier transforms, and we will go further into this particular topic. So if you have any questions, you can ask, otherwise we can leave the class today. Okay, so if there are no questions, then it's fine. So today we have finished off with the Fourier series. Let me take the attendance, and then we can finish this class. Okay then, thank you.